Hi there, and welcome to another episode in this series. Today, we will be discussing control devices. I am Mr. Spence. The objectives for today's lesson are, at the end of today's lesson, you will be able to understand the importance of control devices, identify the parts of a single pole switch, determine plausible uses of a single pole switch, give the color code for a single pole switch, calculate the total current dissipated when lamps are lit. Let's dive right in. Control devices. What are control devices? Well, control devices are used to turn on or off current flow in an electrical circuit. Let's think. What device around the house turns on or off current flowing in the electrical circuit? Yes, you've got it, a switch. Now the first switch that we will look at today is the single pole switch. The single pole switch turns a device, in most cases a light, on and off from one location, hence the word and the name single. The single pole switch must be installed in the hot line. The hot line meaning black and red. As you can see in this picture here, the single pole switch has two terminals along with a toggle used to turn it on and off. Then you have a black line coming in and a red line going out. The black line comes from the main circuit breaker while the red line goes through the device. This means that the black is known as the hot line while the red line is known as the switch feed. Let's look at some important facts about the single pole switch. The single pole switch is the most common type of switch used in residential wiring. You can picture it right now. It is used all over your house. In the bathroom, in the kitchen, in the laundry room, you name it, the single pole switch is used there. The single pole switch type is used in 120 volt circuits to control a lighting outlet or outlets from one location. Yes, you heard correctly. It can be used to control multiple outlets, but these controls are from only one location. An example would be in a bedroom where the single pole switch is located next to the door and allows a person to turn a lighting fixture on when the person enters the room. Now, it's very important for you to understand that a lighting fixture must not be placed behind a door. If it's placed behind a door, when someone enters a room, they will have an issue trying to locate it. So it's placed right at the door and the person can easily access the lighting fixture through the switch. Now let's think about the parts of the single pole switch. The switch toggle, as you will see on the next slide, is used to place the switch in an on or off position when it is moved up or down. Screw terminals. Screw terminals are used to attach the lighting circuit wiring to the switch. On a single pole switch, the two terminal screws are the same color, usually bronze or in popular cases, brass. Grounding screw terminal. The grounding screw terminal is used to attach the circuit grounding conductor to the switch. It is green in color. Mounting ears, used to secure the switch in a device box with two 6 to 32 screws. And mounting strap, it is used to keep the switch flush to the top of the device box. Without these, the switch would not work properly. So as we look at the parts of the single pole switch on the switch itself, mounting ears. They look like ears and they're at the top, and also at the top and also at the bottom of the switch. You have the mounting strap, which is also at the top and also at the bottom of the switch. There's hot terminals, which are brass and or bronze in color. We have the 6 to 32 mounting screw used to keep the switch fastened into the device box. We have the grounding terminal used to connect the grounding electrode or conductor to this device, and that is usually green or bare copper. The toggle. The toggle is used to engage the switch in an on or off position. Oftentimes when individuals are asked to label the switch, they call the toggle the single pole switch. Now you have to keep in mind that the toggle is only a part of the switch and not the entire switch itself. A key feature of the single pole switch also is the on or off designation, which indicates the position in which the switch is at its current state. And in this state, it is in an off position. So those are the parts of the single pole switch. Now we will look at different types or variations of single pole switches. So the single pole switch will come in the quiet type. As you can see here, this is a quiet type switch, meaning when you turn it on or off, it is silent. It's not making that loud clicking sound. There are modern variations of these switches, and you can see them in different electrical stores for wiring modern and more artistically sound switches. But the simple principle on which the single pole switch works is when we look at this diagram at the top here, the single pole switch is in an off position. As you can see, the contacts within the switch are disengaged, which means they are off. No current can flow through. And in other words, this now is known as a short circuit because there's no connection between one terminal and the next. As we can look in the second diagram, both contacts, internal contacts, are engaged, which means the switch is in an on position, which now allows current to flow from one direction to the next. There, as you can see, there are also different types of single pole switches shown here. Some you will be familiar with, some are a bit outdated. And as I said, there are newer versions. But here we have a touch type or a push type single pole switch. You press it and when it's up, the switch is off. When you engage it, it now turns the switch in an on position. Now, you may see these different switches on various devices. Canopy, tumbler, pull chain, and push button switches are all often compacted on different devices, such as lamps, fans, and even cords. These are all switches that operate on the same principle as the single pole switch because they are single pole switches and they control devices from only one location. Now we're going to look at how these single pole switches are configured in a circuit or how they are wired in a circuit. So we have here the parts of this circuit. We have a single pole switch here. we have here a keyless receptacle that has one lamp attached to it, and the feed for this circuit is at the lamp. So when we look at this diagram here to the left, we see the source pipe here. And how do we know that this is the source pipe? Because the main black wire comes through it, as well as the neutral wire, which is white. Now, when you're doing your wiring diagram for yourself, you will either draw the white wire as it is drawn here, or you will use brown for your coloring pencil. I would prefer if you use brown with your coloring pencil to indicate the white or the neutral wire. So we see the source coming through, and in this case, we do not wire the ground contact. We leave the ground out of these wiring diagrams. But for some examples and exercises where the grounding is required, then we will put the grounding in. So here we go. We splice or we shear the main hot coming in, and we send it along. We shear the main neutral, and we send it along to the supply pipe. We connect the neutral to one side of the keyless receptacle, and in terminations, we understand that the white contact or the white screw on the keyless, the white wire on the would be connected to the silver contact on the keyless, while the switch feed, which is the red, would be connected to the brass or bronze terminal on the keyless. So the main hot source black will go down into the single pole switch, connect to one side of the single pole switch, while the red, which is the switch field, will come from the opposite side and will be connected to the lamp. This is the general way in which the single pole switch is used to connect to a lighting fixture. On the right side, we recognize that the source is coming from still the lamp, but only one pipe, where we just send the neutral directly to the lamp. We send the hot black directly to the switch, and then from the switch, we send the red switch feed back to the lamp. And that's how it is connected to a single lamp.